Welcome back to my hometown. Thank you for taking a little time and joining me today. Today I have our mayor from 2017 to 2019 and our current mayor since 2020, Miss Gaylynn Burris. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for taking a little time out of your busy schedule to sit down and visit with us about Bowie. Just before we started, we were talking about what's behind us here, all the pictures of the Bowie knife that Cindy Roller had taken of, and we were just talking about how neat that is. So thank you for being here. And so I want to talk a little bit about your perspective from city government, city officials, different than what we see sometimes as citizens. And I think sometimes it's hard for us to understand because we don't see the same thing
Right.
from your perspective. So I'd kind of like to talk about what has changed over the last 5 years from 2017 to now into 2023. How does that look in regards to our city?
Okay, again, thank you for asking me. I loved it. I love the city of Bowie. I love for people to be so energetic about the city of Bowie, and I love the fact that you're interested and you want to get it out to the public. What has changed? Morale, for one. We've seen a lot of commitment to the city through not only the city government, but the city employees and even the public. And volunteerism is great with our city. It's one of the most amazing towns for volunteerism. We have people constantly wanting to do something. In the last 5 years, we've had several projects. One of them is the building you're sitting in. Good or bad, it was bought now. I've been here 5 years, so it was bought 20 years ago in order to convert it to the city hall. And in 2018, we completed that. 2018, first part of 2019, we completed that conversion. We've moved the finance department over to a new building that we were lucky enough to make quite a trade for, so it wasn't a lot of cash out of pocket for the city. Legend Bank was working with us really close on that. We're in the process now of trying to upgrade a very old building. The police department is in the very old hospital building.
So that used to be the hospital
That
building.
used to be the hospital years ago. Yeah, it's the main structure that's left now. But we're doing some just mild modifications over there, but before that, all of us were in the same building. So everybody was kind of stepping on top of one another. So we've been able to take what had originally started out many years ago as maybe a $6 or $7 million project into less than that, less than $800,000 to make all the renovations that we've made. Another thing is we've taken on a huge sewer project. So the wheels of government move slow could not be a more true statement than it is, because by the time you get the approvals and the loan monies and then the soil samples and the engineering projects, and it is a nightmare. But we worked on it for 2 years. So we will be breaking ground on that project. It will replace a third of our existing sewer lines, which go back as many as 80, 90 years old. Anybody that lives here knows about the clay pipe. So,
And how long did you say that project will take?
the project is, once we break ground, we're expecting a couple of years to get it all finished. And again, I said it's only a third of the city, but that's better than none of it.
Yes.
Let's see, in the last 5 years, we have allowed new ordinances to bring in tiny homes. We were actually seen as a cutting-edge city to bring in the tiny homes. We've had several people build tiny home communities. There's a couple of more on the books even still for tiny home communities. It's necessary in the city of Bowie, extremely necessary.
Because even now with those, it's still hard to find a place to
housing
live.
is very limited here. We've seen a lot of new construction, new homes. Anything from the $110,000 range to the $500,000 range here, right inside the city limits. We saw a lot of growth and a lot of real estate sales over the last 24 months because of the market, which I think a lot of people think that's good for the community, but a lot of people don't. And I can see both sides, because it's good for the community. It brings in new homes for us, but at the same time, it raises the value on existing homes, and some people don't like that. And I understand that because if you've been here 30 years, you own your home, and then all of a sudden everything makes a jump. Sometimes it's a little difficult for those people. We have, I know there's like 14 other projects. We've had a couple of community development projects. They're called block grants, which replaces water lines in different parts of the city, and most of that is economic based. So the lower economy areas wind up getting newer infrastructure. We are working on a project we hope will help us with a big infrastructure project, which is the railroad track on Mill Street. That's been a long time, and that's not only small city government politics and loops and hoops to jump through, it's also state and railroad. So that weighs heavy on us because it's a safety issue. So our present city manager has been working on that nonstop for a couple of years. Unfortunately, the same money that we go after, lots of other communities go after too. So, and it's the state that determines who has priority. I think you'll notice that even the State Department has made some changes in our city with some new street lights, new flow for the different areas in our town.
And I think it's important. A number of years ago, I was asked to be on a SHAC committee for the Bowie ISD, which is a student health advisory committee. So I said yes, and so I always thought the food in the cafeteria was not great. Like we could do better. And I thought, well, why don't they fix it? And so I got on the committee, and come to find out how they did it, how they average calories, and it turns out that it's not a local Bowie ISD issue, it's a state issue.
Yeah.
And I think it's sometimes easy, and that's part of what I wanted to share. I think it's sometimes easy as citizens or on the outside looking in, oh, that's an easy fix, why can't we fix it? Yeah. And like you said, there's a lot more to it. There's red tape, there's who gets what. It's not just up to the city. Right. There's other factors I think sometimes we don't understand as citizens because we're not in the daily how it works, what the flow is.
Well, a lot of times with cities, it's your relationships. It's the relationships that you build. When I first got here, to be honest with you, one of the biggest complaints in the cities was the price of electricity here in our town. I don't think I really paid that much attention to it. You know, my electric bill came in, I paid the bill, I went on. I just always knew it was something I wasn't going to live without. You know? And I'm a firm believer in the city brings me clean water and takes away my used water. So I'm kind of okay with all those things. That's why I live in the city. Yes. I like modern conveniences. Since I got here, we were able to make a change in our electric rates, and again, that has to do with relationships with our provider. We were able to drop those 25%. The greatest thing about that was it was across the board, you know, for the residential customers, which is the people you really want to make the biggest change for. I always said, if you're in business, you can change your rates. You can do something in your business to accommodate a rate increase from some other area. But if you're a resident and you live on a fixed income, you want to be able to know what your bills are going to be. So my goal has, much to some people's chagrin, has been to go after the individual, help the individual more than maybe the business or the corporate relationship. The relationships that we have with the corporations here in Bowie is very good. We have no complaints from our large corporations on doing business here in the city of Bowie. They do their due diligence and determine whether or not they can afford to do business here, and when they do, they come and they stay. So our city works really hard to think about the individual. An example of that was during what was called the Snowmageddon. So all over the state of Texas, not just the state of Texas, but especially us, people were severely hindered with the electric increases during that time. And in the city of Bowie, we were actually hit with a kind of an enormous bill, but we didn't pass it on to our citizens because why? We're here to help them as much as we need them to run our city. So we were very lucky. We're one of the very few cities in the state that could afford to do that. Now we're small. and our expenses are not as great as everybody else's. So it was good for us. We try to keep relationships like that. We have a relationship with our trash service here in town. In the last couple of years, we've upgraded that service. We're constantly trying to find ways to improve the quality of life here.
And I agree when you're talking about electricity, 'cause I have a small business in Bowie, and I mean, I'm always surprised at the amount of space I have that my electricity bill is what it is. It's not high like I would think if I have a 10,000 square foot building that's going to be enormous, and it's not. So I'm always grateful for that. And another thing is that my electricity, even storms, everything, very rarely do I ever
Very
have an
rarely.
issue. I mean, very rarely. Like it's like, what's going on if my electricity goes
Yeah,
on? It went out with a tornado.
Yeah.
You know, but and same thing. I live outside the city limits. I live out there, and even after Snowmageddon, my rates went up in electricity. But in town, they did not.
So let's talk about the tornado
Yeah.
while we're here.
Yes. And I want to commend you on that because during that time, I saw you out walking the streets, helping, and I think that's great for our community to see that.
I had actually been in office 4 days again when the tornado hit. And I loved the job, so being back in office wasn't a big jump for me. It was just an everyday life for me. But let's talk about the tornado. Let's talk about what it did with our community. Oh my gosh. It brought out the best of the best, and even the worst, it brought out the best and the best.
Yes.
We had neighbors, we had a community come together like we've never seen before. Now, I am told, I've only been here 30 years, but I am told that was the first tornado to ever hit Bowie. So, of course it was. But we have amazing electric crew. They had everybody up within 4 days. We had people come from out of town. Again, that's the relationship thing that you have going on. We had other towns come to us and help our electric guys bring everything back together. You have to maintain working relationships with people you wouldn't even dream that you would need that in order to keep your citizens safe and happy. So we did recover beautifully
Yes.
after the tornado. I think it's brought new business to town. Of course, the construction and the reconstruction that people did to recover from the damage of the tornado. Look where we are today compared to where we were. We're still a small town. We hope to stay a small town. I know people always say, I want this and I want that and I want the big stores and I want the big box stores. But do we? I mean, do we really? Because do we want all the traffic and all the growth that goes with it? I know we want our schools. I mean, look where our schools are now, even with our constant population. We've been sitting between 51 and 5,300 people for over 20 years. But look at the growth in our school. So maybe we're not growing inside the city limits as far as population because we're a lot landlocked now because of the new laws in Texas. So, but our schools show that we have growth in our community, and our community is City of Bowie.
So as we keep it small, and you know, I hear often that a lot of people are moving in because we see new construction, people moving in. How do we keep it that small? You know, when people keep moving in, how do we keep that small town feeling? And
Well, we have to be a small town, and we have to think like a small town. And I know that doesn't sound very progressive, but we do need to think like a small town. We don't need to plan for the Metroplex to move to us. Maybe a little closer and let somebody else deal with the growth problems.
Yes.
But we wouldn't really want that because first off, when you grow, I was never a proponent for annexing. I think it was about fear for a lot of people that the city of Bowie would have to annex to grow. Okay, we had annex and we take all the services out to you. That's a huge drain on the city services. We only have 85 employees that run our city. I think you want to control your environment, not necessarily your growth. We're going to have growth. I mean, there's going to be, you've seen it, there's old houses being torn down, new houses being built up. We've always had that reputation of being a little bit of a bedroom community. We will always be that because we don't have the industry really to bring in a lot of homeowners, home buyers. And even if we did, we don't have a lot of place to put them. We have a great project going in right now over by Myers Park, which I'm ecstatic about. one of our local builders, and I don't want to say his name because I don't want to get him, I don't want to get him a bunch of phone calls.
But that's going to be a apartment complexes, is that
It's
correct?
duplexes,
Duplexes.
yes. And there's nothing more we need than housing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely nothing more. And he's bringing to our community 36 or 38, I can't remember exactly, new homes.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll always be we'll probably for many more years be a bedroom, what's considered a bedroom community.
Mm-hmm.
But in today's time, because of our new fiber city,
Mm-hmm.
you can work from home like you're working in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yes.
is one of the great things that happened during the COVID
Mm-hmm.
nightmare, was lots of people did come home to work.
Mm-hmm.
And we are the only city of our size in the state of Texas to be completely wired fiber by one company and be committed to our community the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
Fiber issues in our community are almost non-existent.
Yeah, I mean, again, I have a business in town. My internet outside of town probably goes down a little more than in town. I mean, in town, I think I've been with them for a number of years and maybe once.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's because maybe somebody cut a line or they hit a line
They
going
hit a
through
line.
town.
They did. They hit
Yes.
a line going
Yep.
through town.
Mhm.
And it took out 820 lines when they did that. Yet we were all up back in 8 hours.
Mhm.
Less
It
than
was
8
quick.
hours.
Mhm.
So again, that's another one of those relationships that was born. It was slightly initiated before I got here and definitely finished after I got here. So it's all about relationships. Everything is about relationships.
Mhm.
All the way from my office to Parks guys.
Mhm.
We all have great relationships, and we try and have those great relationships with people in the community.
Mhm. What do you see as our community? We have a lot of great things going on, but just like any family, we have our challenges.
Mhm.
What do you see as some of the challenges in our community? Because I think if we're all behind the challenge and we all recognize the challenge as a community, then we can all work together to make changes in that challenge, to have an opportunity for change of some sort.
So I think I say this with absolute clarity in the fact that before I got here, I might have thought things did work differently.
Mm-hmm.
I had a conversation today with our streets department head. He's over the airport, water and sewer. They run the water lines and the sewer lines. But the biggest complaint we have in Bowie is streets.
Mm-hmm.
Every little town I go to, the biggest complaint they have in their town is their streets, because it is the last thing that gets the attention,
Mm-hmm.
because it's one of the most expensive. And you do a new street, you have a water line break.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do a new street, and within 10 days you could have a pothole in it because you got a water line break. But the amount of dollars that goes into repair things like that. Our city has 94 miles of streets. Would you think that?
Well, I would not think that.
I wouldn't have either. I
That's
wouldn't
it.
have thought that. But we have 13 very busy streets.
Uh-huh.
To repave all 13 streets would be $6 million plus in dollars.
Uh-huh.
And those are good numbers because we've just received those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So
And that's just for 13 streets.
that's just for 13 streets, and that's the most highly trafficked 13 streets.
And that's not even probably 13 miles.
Oh,
That's
no, probably
13
not.
streets.
That's just 13
Yeah.
streets. So the cost of things are unbelievable. They were really bad, a couple of years ago, but they're excessive now.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some projects that just have to be put off. We couldn't even get replacement vehicles, equipment, over the 2 years from 2020 to 2022, just because of availability out there. It's unbelievable. But the largest complaint we have is obviously streets.
What can we do as citizens, as residents of Bowie? There's challenges. What can we do to help? I mean, there's challenges, other challenges besides maybe the streets that we might have. As citizens, do we need to become better informed? Do we need to ask better
absolutely.
questions?
Absolutely.
Because, I think sometimes we don't ask questions. We
We don't-
go talk
we don't-
about it,
We don't
but we
ask the
don't.
right people.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. First thing you do is don't ask Facebook. I didn't think I was going to say that word today. But But it is. This week alone, you can tag anybody on Facebook. Of course, I'm always tagged on Facebook. And at any given time, anybody can call me because my phone numbers are everywhere online, so you can find me. But they'll ask one another, or they'll complain to one another out there, but they won't call and ask why. Why is it not getting this, or why is it not getting that? I am in recent past, I've had to defend our library. Why do we have a library? Why wouldn't we have a library? Especially in our socioeconomic level. Why wouldn't we have a library? Our library is phenomenal. Not to mention the access to internet, the free access to Wi-Fi if you're outside. The librarian here is amazing. There's not a year that goes by she doesn't get a grant of some kind.
And they have a lot of programs for the kids.
They have tons of programs for the kids. They have tons of programs for the community. The library in our community is every bit as important as water, as electricity, because it's raising our children. It's a device for our children. I have 2 grandchildren that live right behind it. They constantly are in the library. I think that when you're in a small town and you see money going towards a pool or a library or a park, and you still have bad streets, you have to think about the quality of life and how that's spread out. And yes, I would love to see all of our streets done like the state does, but we don't have their manpower, equipment, or supplies.
And it's not you sitting in an office going, oh, we're not going to fix those streets.
No.
Well,
I can tell you one street we don't fix. We don't work on mine. Yes, no, we don't work on mine. I don't think that's fair to anybody else. So now, when I'm not married anymore, well, I make that phone call and go, okay, I'm not getting special treatment anymore, so maybe we can work on my street. But I think you have to think of it in the grand scheme of things. What are you willing to give up? Because when I pose that question to people, I never get a real, well, I don't want to give up anything. Well, of course nobody does. I don't want to give up anything. I don't want to give up my fire service. I don't want to give up my ambulance, especially my ambulance service. Look how big our ambulance service covers the south half of Montague County.
Wow.
We are a big part of the county. When we had the ice storm, we had the warming center, a community center open with warm beds, warm place for people to sleep. Not one person from the city of Bowie was there. It was people from out in the county. We try to be a steward of our county, not just our city. I think what you have to do is you really have to determine what is most important. Is it an overall, or is it one item? And I think it should always be an overall living arrangement, living community. How are the people here? How is your community? How's your neighborhood? We still don't have the issues that other places have. And I think it's because, first off, the people that are in city government care. I live here and they care. When you are in politics and on the council or the mayor, sitting on one of the boards for the city, which there are several, you have dinner in the same restaurants that these people have. You go grocery shopping and I liked it when Walmart was open 24 hours.
Yes, that was nice.
But you go to the grocery store with these people. You want to be able to face these people. I'm willing to talk to anybody. I don't know of a council member that's not willing to talk to anybody about different issues. But they want to be talked to, not talked at. And they want to be able to offer solutions. But honestly, there is a solution to every problem. They're just not always attainable.
And I think it's a good point. It's a good challenge to us as citizens is to ask, and go to city officials and say, in a nice tone, in a nice way, in a conversation, how is this working? Help me understand,
Right.
Because today I understand a lot more than I did before we started. And I hope through this that people, our community, will understand the issues that we face as a community. Yes, we live in a wonderful community, but I love that it's a give and take. What are you willing to give up? And overall, how's the overall whole look? Yes, we'd like every street to be perfect, but are we willing to give up other things for that? And I don't think so. Because then there's someone else that's going to go, well, I wanted that. I don't really mind the streets, but I wanted that. So I think as a community, as a family, we work together for the best overall of our community.
Well, it's a give and take, and I think when you choose to move to a small community, although I will have to tell you, a lot of people that I've met over the last 5 years that have chosen to move to Bowie, they're always very positive. I've been here 30 years. I'm still very positive. But a lot of the long-term residents are not necessarily positive. They've seen people come and go. They've seen things promised to them. And the last thing I want to do is promise anybody that something's going to happen because, oh my gosh, there is no guarantee. You can...
Because all kinds of things can happen.
All kinds of things can happen. Look what happened with the tornado. Look what happened in COVID. Things can change in just a matter of moments. I don't want to promise anybody that something's going to happen, but I can promise everybody I'm doing everything I can to do the best for the community. Because I live here. Why would I want it to be bad? I don't want it to be bad for me, for my kids, for your kids. I want Bowie to be, well, it was my goal for my son to go off to college and want to move home. And it was a struggle. But a wife and children made him want to move home. So how much more could you ask for your community? It's for your young people to come back and want to be a part of it as their children are growing up.
And I think sometimes younger ones don't appreciate how special our community is until, and I encourage my kids to move away because I want them to now have a comparison.
Right.
To now know, oh, my little town that I thought I couldn't wait to get out of was a very special place, and I don't get that feeling anywhere else. Yeah. And so it makes them want to come back.
And that's our goal, is to raise our children to learn to appreciate their past. And he had to do the same thing. He had to get out someplace and realize, you know what? I rode my bicycle all over town when I was a kid. I want my kids to be able to do the same thing. I think we can still do that here. I think our illegal activities are not like they are other places. We have a really great community. I know I sound like I'm a broken record, but of all the places around us, and of course everybody has their special place. All the little towns around us, all those people that live there, that's their special place. I think that's fabulous for every little community. We're lucky enough to live in a community that has some services, some opportunities that the ones around us don't have, but we're here for them too. So I think you just learn how far you're willing to go and how close you want to be before you make that final decision. And right now, lots of people are thinking they're far enough away from the Metroplex, or even California. Goodness knows, we're getting tons of people from out of state. But, that's a question I ask people anytime I find out where they are. How did you find Bowie, Texas?
And what do they say?
You know, there's any number of, actually one person said, I did this. I was looking for someplace around the Metroplex. I did this on the calendar. I mean, on the map.
And that's right.
And this is where we came. Some people it's family. Some people it's cost of living. Some people they sell a home in California and they come over here and they buy half of, a lot of land for what they sell in California.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. People ask me all the time, how did I get to Bowie? When I met my husband, he lived in Ardmore and I lived in Houston. This was as far to the Oklahoma border as I would go. So that's how we wound up in Bowie. So everybody has their own story for getting here. I think that we just have to determine that we're going to have problems. We're going to have growth issues. We're going to have ongoing issues. And then we're going to have, oh my gosh, I can't believe that ever happened here issues. So we just have to learn to take it all one day at a time, one issue at a time.
And I agree, and I think I'd like to challenge all of us as a community is to understand that we're going to have all those things, and to be positive and encourage the community, encourage those people that come in, even if you've been here 30, 40, 50 years, and new people will say, well, just wait around a little bit and you'll find out. Yeah. Instead of saying that, share all the good things that we have in our community.
And become a part of something. There's so many things around here to do. It's the churches and the community activities, the senior center, both the Silver Strings and our senior citizens. We do Meals on Wheels. We do lunches.
There's so many opportunities.
There's so many opportunities to get involved in here. Just at the city alone, there's the library, there's community development board, there's chicken and bread, there's one of the greatest things we offer is sip and stroll. Come on, people. There's something fun to do all the time. I have a sister that lives in just north of Houston, and she's constantly saying, "Do you ever stay home? Do you ever stay home? There's tons of things to do." And there is. I think we have a great family life here. You know, we don't have everything the Metroplex has, but we have great quality of family life here, and we have an amazing residency. Our community is one of the most loving communities, and if anybody needs anything, it doesn't take very long to get enough people together to make sure that something happens.
It happens really quick.
Sound like I'm selling my town. Don't I?
Well, that's good because the goal of my hometown is to not only share the richness and value with our community, but those that are looking to come to our community,
Right.
that they can come here and find out what makes Bowie so special. Instead of maybe just putting a finger on the map, they've done a little research and they come across my hometown. They go, "That's someplace I'd like to live."
Right.
And that's my goal with the show, is to share that and show, because I do think we have rich value and a sense of family that does come together. But like any family, and I think we have to be honest with people that we have the goods and bads.
Oh, absolutely.
That's just the way it is.
Yep.
We can't be perfect.
No.
And we can't expect it to be perfect. I'm sure if each one of our families are not perfect, so why should we expect our
No. And
community to be perfect?
And anytime you get, you know, let's just say it, anytime you get government involved, there's going to be problems. But we can all come together, and we have, again, Bowie is quite the special little place to be, and I plan to be here for a very long time. Hope my kids are here for a very long time. I'd love to see my grandchildren graduate from the same school my son graduated from. I mean, that's building roots. And
Yes.
I think roots are very important. And I mean, you know, come on, we have a town of 5,000 people, and a little retired girl is the mayor. So you can do things in the city of Bowie. You can be a part of what's going on.
There's a place for everybody.
Absolutely.
Whether you want to be involved, whether you just want to be part of the community, there's a place.
There's a place for everybody.
There's a place. So we've talked about Bowie being special over and over and over. What makes you call it my hometown? What's the thing that when you think of Bowie, my hometown, that you go, I just can't?
You know, I told you, when I met my husband, he lived in Ardmore, and he actually lived in Marietta, and I lived in Houston. I was 29 years old. Never had children. But I knew if I ever decided to want to have children, I probably wasn't going to want to raise them there. And so when I met him and we started looking for a home together, there was something, and I went to all of them. I've been to all as far as Gainesville and that west of there, east of there, and I've been towards Jacksboro and everything. I tell everybody for the longest I came to Bowie because it had a Walmart. But I think I came to Bowie because it had things I remembered. It had things I wanted. We all of us as kids, we all do the Sonic drag, you know. So we did that when I was a kid. There was a Sonic on the drag here. You know, it's something about being 30 years old, not having a child, but thinking, you know, one of these days I'd like for them to have the same experiences I had. And I actually grew up in a town with 250 people.
Oh, wow.
So the closest town had maybe 2,500 people in it. So I could relate to the smallness of it. I could relate to, the Gibsons was here when I got here. There was a bowling alley, which you're very familiar with.
Yes.
That building. There was all the little things that I thought, how it'd be just nice to get to know people, to know the community again. When I grew up, my mother was the principal's secretary. Yeah, you don't get by with anything in school when your mother's the principal's secretary. But we knew everybody. My father owned a business in downtown. So I love that. I love the getting to know people. I've owned several businesses in Bowie, and you get to know your community because you serve them. And I wanted that. So Bowie was all I saw in this part of Texas that I thought would fulfill all those wants and needs. And then shortly thereafter, I found out I was going to have a baby. So it must have been the right choice.
Yes.
So I love the fact that he lived in a community where you get up on your bicycle and Mom, I'll be back later.
And can go and
No cell phones, didn't know where he was, but I knew he was safe. He was with his friends, and we were in a safe place. So it just filled all those childhood wants and needs again. And then a year after that, my parents actually left my hometown
yeah,
and came to Bowie.
came to
They
Bowie.
saw the same things. So, so it's been a family affair.
and that's special.
Yeah.
That's very special, and for our kids to come back is even more special.
Oh, I don't think that anything can be said more for your community than bringing your generation home. I do agree with you. They should move away, and he did. They should move away. They should have something to compare it to. I used to tell him all the time, "You're not going to live in Bowie as a child forever." And I think a lot of our young people are like, "I just want to get away from everybody. I want to go start my own life." But I would have to tell him all the time, "You're not going to be a child forever." And so people aren't going to know you as a child forever. When you're a family man, a father, a husband, they see you differently. You see the world differently. So coming back to something that's familiar that you can share with your children, what more could a parent want? Either myself as his parent or him as a parent of his own children. So we just got lucky that we brought an Oklahoma girl to Texas.
And I think, I always say that when I go to my parents' house, I can take a nap and sleep like no other place,
That's
even at my
exactly
home.
right.
And I think it's the same way when you move away and you come back to your hometown. It's like, man, this just feels just great. I just feel so comfortable here.
Yeah.
And I just think
There's
that's
nothing like
special.
having your children walk through the back door. No knocking, no nothing. First thing they do when they walk through the back door, "Mom, what do you got to eat?"
And they just come in, and it's nice that you don't have to make arrangements.
They're always home. They're always home when they come to Mom and Dad's house. So yeah, I just think Bowie is a great family community. We are a very involved community between the parents of the younger kids and the sports. I was very involved in when he was younger, and then now we have so much more to choose from for the kids. The dance studios and the music studios, and we have so much more now than we even had then. So there's the parents in our community are very involved.
Yes, even when I was a kid in the community, it's just way different now. For the better. I mean, there's a lot more things to do, a lot more
things to
opportunities,
do.
things to try and see if you like and don't like. And so I think it's a great place.
We definitely have. We definitely have a lot more for them to do now, and things that they'll take on into adulthood. I remember saying, "You should learn to play guitar. You should learn to play golf." Both of those he did, but later in life. But we have all that now for children to get instruction, which we didn't have a lot of that back then. So we have a lot for children to take with them as adults, and they should have a lot of that kind of access. I agree with that. So, and we have great schools.
But yes.
We really do. We have great schools.
We just have a great community. We have a great town.
Yes, we do.
And we just want to share it with the world. So thank you, Mayor, for joining me today and being a part of my hometown. Just wanted to share your perspective, your thoughts to our citizens, to those moving into our town as our town grows. People move out, people move in, our town will we just want to keep it that rich value, family-centered
Yes.
town.
I think most people would agree with you that we're very family-centered. We have our eye on the future.
Yes.
And that has to be our community and our children. So, yeah. I appreciate you inviting me. I actually didn't know what this was going to really turn into, but there's nothing better than being positive about where you live.
And that's just the goal for the show, is just to show what amazing town we live in.
Yeah.
And because I think sometimes we see all the negative things, and there's so much positive. But all we hear, sometimes one negative comment outweighs 10 positive.
Oh, absolutely.
And I just want to share the positive, as might say, positive vibes to our community. So and those moving in. So thank you for
Thank
spending
you
a
for
little time.
taking on this task.
You're welcome.
Thank
You're welcome.
you.
I'm excited because my goal too is I learned. I learned today about how many miles of streets we have in our town and how much it costs to fix 13 streets. And so, I mean, that's interesting. So now we
Well,
have a better idea.
You know, anytime you want to know something, all you got to do is pick up the phone and call.
Okay.
Somebody
Yeah.
will be here to answer it.
So that's a challenge to each of us. If
Okay.
you want to know something, don't phone a friend.
No.
Phone the city hall,
Phone
city
City
office.
Hall.
Yes, and you'll find a friend on the other end, right? So thank you again for joining me today. And thank you for each of you for stopping by today and visiting with us today. And we're looking forward to seeing you around my hometown.